You missed your daughter's first birthday for
to be here.
Regret that you'll never be able to undo.
Yeah.
Horrible parenting.
I came here on my daughter's birthday because I thought I could get some good answers out of you. Where's your son?
Somewhere safe, and it's not his birthday.
When's his birthday?
What does it matter? It ain't today.
How do you go from filming TikToks in your living room to sharing a bed with one of the biggest rappers in the world and then losing almost everything in less than 3 years? This is the story of Bobbi Althoff, a creator who turned awkward silences into a brand, celebrity interviews into a goldmine, and internet outrage into daily headlines. Her rise was so sudden, people started wondering if it was even real. Was she just lucky? Was she connected? Or was there something else going on behind the scenes? Because it wasn't just that Bobbi blew up, it's that she did it in a way no one saw coming, with a style that made people either obsessed or furious. And just as quickly as her career exploded, it all came crashing down. Messy rumors, public fallouts, personal scandals, and a fan base that seemed to turn on her overnight. Some called it karma, others called it inevitable, but either way, it's a story worth unpacking from the very beginning. Bobbi Althoff didn't start in Hollywood. She started in Paris, California, a place where dreams of stardom are something you watch on TV, not something you live. She married young, settled down, and by her early 20s was already a mother of 2. On paper, life looked predictable. Family routines, stability, the same faces every week. But Bobbi wasn't built for predictable. In late 2020, she picked up her phone, opened TikTok, and posted her very first video, a short clip of her dancing with a banana. It didn't blow up instantly, but it gave her a taste of what could happen. She saw millions of people getting famous out of nowhere, and she wanted in. The next year was a blur of experiments. Parody skits of perfect moms who only let their kids play with wooden toys in beige playrooms. Parenting satire aimed at parents obsessed with social media aesthetics. Random nanny tips based on her old job before having kids. She posted constantly, sometimes 10 videos in a single day, throwing everything at the wall just to see what would stick. Most didn't, but every flop taught her what wasn't gonna work. Then, finally she found it. A character, the shallow, image-obsessed mom. It was just exaggerated enough to make people question whether it was satire or real. And that's when the comments started rolling in, mostly from moms who either laughed along or got offended. Either way, they were watching, and her follower count shot up. For most people, going viral would have been the destination. But for Bobbi, it was just the warm-up. She already had her sights set on something much bigger and much richer.
I think you're confusing.
I'm not confusing nothing because you don't know. You thought that all I was a magician or whatever the fuck you said. Yeah, I'm not no musician. I make music. I make music. And that's not all I do. I make music, I act, so I'm a musician. What the fuck that mean? Make magic or something? What is musician?
By mid-2022, Bobbi Althoff had cracked the code. 3 million followers. Millions of views every week. And comment sections packed with people who either loved her dry, satirical style or hated it enough to keep watching just to complain. Either way, she was winning the attention game. The money was rolling in too. Between brand deals, TikTok's creator fund, and sponsored posts, she was pulling in somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000 a year. For someone who not long ago was just another young mom in a small California town, it was life-changing. Now she could travel anywhere, buy anything, and more importantly to her, she didn't have to depend on anyone financially ever again. But Bobbi wasn't the type to sit still and enjoy the moment. She understood what most creators learn the hard way. TikTok fame can disappear as fast as it arrives. One algorithm tweak, one viral trend passing you by, and you're done. She didn't just want a platform, she wanted something bulletproof. That's when she spotted her next move, podcasting. Podcasts weren't just about views, they built loyalty. People would subscribe, listen every week, and stick with you even if your viral moments slowed down. Plus, she'd heard other influencers talk about their podcast earnings, and in her head, those numbers sounded even better than what she was already making. But if Bobbi was going to do a podcast, she wasn't going to blend in with the sea of bubbly, over-prepared hosts. Her brand was awkward pauses, unbothered stares, and cutting one-liners, so she doubled down on that. She'd sit across from her guests, barely reacting, letting the silence drag until they started talking just to fill it. It was the opposite of what interview rules say you should do, and online, the opposite can be gold. The problem? She didn't have a Rolodex of A-list guests to get things rolling, so she turned to her followers with an unusual offer: $300 cash if they could land a celebrity for her to interview. No agent calls, no PR teams, just DMs and favors. The first big catch from this approach was comedian Funny Marco. That episode introduced her to an entirely new audience and unknowingly set her up for the most important DM of her career. The Funny Marco episode was Bobbi's first taste of what it felt like to pull in a whole new audience. It wasn't just her regular followers commenting. There were strangers who'd never heard of her before, and they were talking about the girl who didn't seem to care about interviews. But what she didn't know was that this single connection would lead to the biggest, wildest break of her career. It started with a clip from that Marco interview going a little viral. Nothing unusual, until she saw a name pop up in her notifications. Not just any name. Drake. The Drake. Multi-platinum, Grammy-winning, top of the Billboard charts for a decade Drake. For most people, that moment would have been the story. You screenshot it, send it to friends, and milk the bragging rights forever. But Bobbi's brain didn't work like that. She didn't want to screenshot Ace. She wanted a seat across from him on her podcast, so she took a swing most people wouldn't dare. She opened his DMs and typed, "When are you going to come on my podcast?" She figured there was maybe a 1% chance of him seeing it at all, and an even smaller chance of him actually responding. But within seconds, the typing bubble appeared. Seconds later, he replied, and he was game. No long negotiations, no middleman. He even sent her his tour schedule like he was daring her to make it happen. Bobbi didn't hesitate. 2 days later, she and a friend were on a flight to Memphis, chasing a chance she knew could change everything. When they hit record, she leaned all the way into her signature style, sitting next to him in bed, asking half questions, letting the silences breathe just long enough to make people squirm. The internet didn't know if they were watching a flirtation, a roast, or the most awkward celebrity interview in history, which of course made them watch it even more. The numbers were staggering. The episode racked up over 1 billion views across platforms, more than 300 million likes. Clips flooded TikTok and Twitter. Reaction videos, memes, and think pieces exploded overnight. Bobbi Althoff went from that mom who does sarcastic TikToks to the girl who interviewed Drake in bed in a matter of days. But as the view count climbed, so did the questions. How did someone with no media background land one of the biggest stars in the world? Was this pure luck, or was something or someone pulling strings? Bobbi was on top of the world. The internet, however, was already sharpening its knives. The Drake interview made Bobbi a household name, but it also made her a target. For every new fan she gained, there were just as many people side-eyeing her rise. The first wave of criticism was simple. People thought her whole, awkward host routine was ripped from someone else. Specifically, Amelia de Moldenberg, the British creator behind Chicken Shop Date. Amelia's style was dry, a little flirty, self-deprecating. Bobbi's? Colder, sharper, sometimes even outright dismissive. Fans of Amelia accused Bobbi of copying without bringing the same charm, and they didn't hold back online. Then came the personal blows. It leaked that she'd missed her own daughter's first birthday to record that Drake interview. That detail spread faster than the clips themselves. Some people shrugged it off as the cost of chasing a dream. Others saw it as proof she'd trade anything, even family milestones, for fame. Theories about her sudden success got wilder by the day. Was she an industry plant? Did she have hidden connections? Was there something going on between her and Drake? She denied it all, insisting she'd built her career through years of hard work and relentless posting, but denial only fueled the rumor mill, and once the internet starts sniffing for a scandal, it doesn't stop. Comment sections filled with accusations. Think pieces painted her as the poster child for clout chasing at any cost. And while Bobbi kept her composure in public, the shift in tone was clear. People weren't just questioning her talent anymore, they were questioning her character. The fame was still there, the views were still huge, but for the first time, so was the hate. The rumors that had been swirling since the Drake interview weren't just internet noise anymore, they were starting to bleed into Bobbi's personal life. In February 2024, it became official. Bobbi and her husband Corey Althoff were getting divorced. The reason in the court filing was neat and vague, irreconcilable differences, but the internet immediately wrote its own, far juicier version of events. Fans combed through the paperwork and noticed something that made their eyebrows shoot up. The separation date was listed as July 4th, 2023. The exact same month, Bobbi skipped her daughter's first birthday to fly out and record her now famous interview with Drake. For critics, this wasn't coincidence. It was the smoking gun. In their minds, the timeline was obvious. Drake interview, marriage implodes, divorce, and once the internet finds a theory it likes, it will dig up every scrap of content to back it up. Soon, old clips of Bobbi started resurfacing, all of them reinforcing the same unflattering image. The one that spread fastest was a video of her going off on her husband for not making enough money. She sat there, looking straight into the camera, telling him he had an income problem, not her spending problem. Then casually mentioned she'd charged $8,000 to his credit card for a spontaneous vacation with her daughter. It was the kind of clip that, in isolation, might have been written off as a bit, but in the middle of a messy divorce, it became Exhibit A for who Bobbi really is. Meanwhile, the whispers about her and Drake didn't just hang around, they grew louder. Boxer Ryan Garcia even jumped into the gossip, claiming on camera that Bobbi had hooked up with Drake and that was why her marriage ended. He even threw in a brag about kissing her himself. Bobbi denied it all, but at this point, her denial wasn't killing the rumors. If anything, it was making them more interesting to her critics. Then came the new wave of videos that shifted the public's perception even further. No more clips of the sarcastic podcast host. Instead, paparazzi-style footage started popping up. Bobbi being carried out of bars by men, limp in their arms, before being loaded into waiting SUVs. Photos of her at celebrity-heavy parties with rappers and athletes started circulating. Almost overnight, her brand morphed from deadpan interviewer to Hollywood party girl, and people hated it. Every post she made was drowned in the same comments. Where are your kids? You left your family for this? This is what clout chasing looks like. Bobbi tried to push back. On one Miami trip, she posted a photo dump with the caption, "Before any of you motherers start, my baby is literally on my boob as I type this." But it didn't land as a defense, To most people, it sounded defensive and out of touch, especially as more footage emerged of her club hopping and mingling in VIP sections. What made it worse was the contrast. The Bobbi people discovered on TikTok had been relatable, a young mom roasting social media culture. The Bobbi they saw now seemed cold, obsessed with money, and willing to trade her personal life for fame. For an online personality, losing that likability factor is dangerous. But losing it while your biggest audience is rooting for you to fail? That's career quicksand, and whether she realized it or not, Bobbi was already sinking. By now, Bobbi's public image was fractured. The same internet that once boosted her every clip was now showing up mainly to watch her get humbled, and that shift was starting to hit her career directly. On The Really Good podcast, it became obvious that the audience's favorite moments weren't when Bobbi roasted her guests. They were when the guests roasted her. People were tuning in just to see if someone would finally put her in her place. One of the most infamous examples was her interview with Offset. She poked fun at his outfit, asking why he'd wear boots, shorts, and a giant jacket on a 100-degree day. Offset didn't take it lightly. He fired back about her style, accused her of not getting it, and told her straight up that he didn't even want to be on her podcast. He was only there because people made him. By the end, when she asked if he'd recommend her show to a friend, he didn't hesitate. Hell no. That clip alone racked up millions of views. But the joke was on her. The same problem followed her onto the road. When she teamed up with Funny Marco for a live tour, the chemistry that worked in short clips didn't translate to the stage. Marco eventually started pulling shows altogether, saying the crowds weren't getting their money's worth. He explained that Bobbi was stiff live, leaning into her "I don't talk much" persona, a style that might work in a 10-minute podcast segment, but fell flat in front of paying audiences expecting energy. Bobbi didn't exactly deny it. She admitted to having social anxiety and said that her onstage awkwardness wasn't just an act, and it was who she really was. But to fans who paid for tickets, that didn't matter. They weren't paying to watch her be herself, they were paying to be entertained. Even her attempts at vulnerability were met with mixed reactions. In an interview with rapper NLE Choppa, she opened up about trying to take her own life at 14, sparking a rare moment of sincerity between them. For some viewers, it was a reminder that Bobbi was more than just a sarcastic host. But for others, it felt like an out-of-character detour in a brand they'd already stopped taking seriously. By this point, Bobbi was caught in a loop. The antics that once made her go viral were now predictable. Guests knew what to expect, the audience knew what to expect, and no one was surprised anymore. Worse, the internet wasn't laughing with her. They were laughing at her. With her reputation in free fall and her audience turning into rubberneckers at a car crash, Bobbi knew she needed a win, something to remind people why they watched her in the first place. That lifeline seemed to appear in the form of Sukihana. Their first interview had gone viral for all the right reasons. Wild back and forth, hilarious misunderstandings, and a clip where Bobbi confused the word musician with magician that became an instant meme. The internet ate it up, and for a moment it looked like Bobbi had found her groove again. She doubled down, bringing Suki back for another episode, but the magic was gone. The chemistry that felt spontaneous the first time now felt staged. Viewers could sense it, and the views showed it. Good numbers by normal standards, but far from the viral spike she needed. From there, the decline accelerated. Episodes with veteran comedian Marc Maron and even a dedicated fan special failed to break 40,000 views. A far cry from her Drake-era heights. The internet's fascination with her was fading, and she hadn't found a new hook to replace it. In the middle of this slump, Bobbi's personal life kept spilling into her content. She recorded herself crying over the end of a short-lived situationship, telling the story of how it started around Thanksgiving, moved too fast, and ended with a breakup she couldn't undo. She tried to head off the usual criticism by making jokes about her family situation, but the comments were still brutal. "You around and found out you had a family? Are we supposed to care?" Even her attempts to connect through shared struggles backfired. In an interview with Lil Che, she compared herself to her own mother, admitting she once judged her for having multiple baby fathers, and now realized she was on track to follow the same path after her divorce. Che tried to comfort her, saying, "It's life," but the clip only fueled more online jokes about her relationship history. When another guest, comedian Drewski, joked about women faking taking Plan B pills, Bobbi snapped, breaking her deadpan character to insist she'd only had kids she wanted. The defensive tone was a stark contrast to her usual unflappable persona, and fans noticed. Every move she made seemed to remind people of the same narrative. Bobbi wasn't the underdog anymore. She was the clout chaser who peaked, partied, and lost the audience's sympathy. And no matter how many guests she booked, the numbers told the truth. The rebuild wasn't working. Bobbi dropped the news no one quite expected. The Really Good podcast was over. No season break, no slow fade out. Just done. The announcement blindsided her remaining fans. Even though her numbers were nowhere near their peak, most assumed she'd keep it going. Podcasts can survive in a niche. You don't need a billion views every episode to make good money. But Bobbi insisted this wasn't a stunt. It wasn't a rebrand. She was finished. "Please say JK," one commenter begged. She replied, "It's really over." The internet's reaction was split, but not in her favor. Former guests like Ruby Rose posted they'd missed the show, but much of the public treated it like the final act of a slow-motion train wreck. For her critics, the ending wasn't sad. It was proof of what they'd been saying all along. She rose too fast, burned too many bridges, and built her brand on something too shallow to last. Bobbi herself admitted she didn't think she'd fall off this quickly. That line became a meme, passed around as the perfect caption for anyone who'd flown too close to the sun. The moral people pulled from her story was blunt. You can't trade your entire personal life for clout and expect the internet to stay on your side forever. Whether she's truly done or just regrouping is anyone's guess. Her history suggests she's not the type to disappear quietly. But even if she launches a new project, the challenge will be enormous. For a rebrand to work, the audience has to want to see you win. And after years of scandals, viral awkwardness, and a public divorce that turned into tabloid fuel, Bobbi Althoff may have used up her last reserves of goodwill. Her career started as proof that anyone could get famous from their phone. It ended as a reminder that staying famous is a whole different game.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to Stars and Hypes so you don't miss what's coming next. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how things will continue. Drop them in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, take care and have a great day.